We are here at Boundary Oak Golf Course in Walnut Creek, California. This is hole 1. We're playing from the tips. It's a 424 yard par 4. Basically, straight away, no trouble to look out for. If you miss right, it'll come back into play off of the hill. Missing left, as you're watching me do there, you're going to have to punch one back into the fairway from behind the trees there. But besides that, it's basically green light go and let one fly with the driver. A fairly easy opening hole here. So with the double cross off the tee, I missed the fairway about 20 yards left. I had to punch back into play here. Brandon put one up there pretty good. He missed the fairway a bit to the right, but had a short wedge in that he played just about pin high, probably left himself about 20 feet for a birdie. Now back in the middle of the fairway here, I had about 65 yards to the pin. Played it a little bit long. Left myself a downhill 15-footer for a par that you saw I missed, so I'll tap in for a bogey. Brandon will give this putt a good roll. He runs it by the hole a couple of feet, and then he'll tap in for his par. A pretty good start for him. That brings us to hole 2, a 181-yard par 3. This is playing downhill, but the breeze was into us, so we played it about the yardage. There are bunkers front left and front right, as you can see, which can come into play with the wind. We both played our tee shots about pin high, but pulled them 20 feet left on the hillside for a tough short-sided up and down here. But Brandon played his shot before I could get in there to film it to about an inch. He almost holed out. I kind of stabbed at mine and ran it past, and I ended up two-putting for a double bogey while Brandon tapped in for his par. Playing hole 3, which is a long par 5. It's 565 yards from the tips. You want to put this one kind of just straight through the gap here. There is a bunker on the left side of the fairway that we can carry it into. It's about 270 yards out. We both played pretty good shots off the tee here. I put mine just off the right side of the fairway, and Brandon put his just off the left side. So we both elected to lay up here. Brandon's just going to play a nice draw around the right side of those trees to give himself about a 120-yard shot. And I'm going to do the same right into the middle of the fairway to leave myself about the same yardage in. Now Brandon, with just a wedge in hand, he has just over 100 yards. The pin's just over the bunker on the front side of the green here. He's going to play one beyond it and try to spin it back to it, but unfortunately it stuck the green and left himself about a 20-footer downhill. Now I've got about 60 yards. I played that iron a little long. I played this shot right underneath the pin, but it released out, which is going to leave me with about a 15-20 footer as well. So I hit a pretty good putt here. You can see it broke like 5 feet left. I left myself a pretty easy tap in there for my par, which I made, thankfully. Finally played a decent hole here. Brandon with his birdie putt down the hill. This is also breaking pretty good to his left, and he put this one right in the bottom of the cup, so good for him. He's a couple up in the match. Now in the tee box in the 4th hole, a 413-yard par 4. That's a dogleg to the right. There is a bunker on the right side of the fairway here that's about 260, 270 out, which Brandon can typically carry. Unfortunately, he pulled this one a little bit to the left into the trees, and I hit a pretty decent little low cut around the left side of that bunker to put myself in. So Brandon's shot here is probably one of the better shots I've ever seen him play. So he's setting up to play a pretty massive cut off the left side of this tree, which he executes pretty well. Actually gets this ball to land on the left side of the green about pin high. So I had about 95 yards left to that pin, which you can see is tucked right behind that front bunker. I carried that bunker just barely by like 5 feet to leave myself an uphill putt, which is important on this super fast green. I unfortunately missed the birdie putt, but I had an easy tap in there for a par. Now Brandon played this putt 6 feet above the hole, and you can see it's breaking all the way back down to the pin. And even though he only left himself about 3 feet, this green is super slippery, so he'll barely miss that and tap in for his bogey. So after a typically tough 4th hole, this 5th hole is always a nice relief. It's a 520-yard par 5 that plays downhill, and today playing down breeze as well. There is a bunker that comes into play on the right side of the fairway, but there's a ton of space left, so you can sort of take that out of play. And we both played pretty nice shots here that put us in good position off the tee. On my approach here, I had about 240 yards left downhill to the front of the green. I unfortunately yanked this rescue left, which was not super ideal. Brandon put himself way down here. He's got a mid-iron in, and he plays this one just short of the front of the green, where he should have a pretty easy up and down for a birdie. So I ended up in play. I just had about a 50-yard little wedge into a middle pin. And Brandon, just short of the green, elected to putt this, which he lagged up there nicely to leave himself a nice easy 3-footer for a birdie. And I left myself about a 20-footer straight back up the hill for a birdie that I ended up making, which felt pretty good to get my game a little bit more back on track here. Now on the tough 6th hole, it's a 202-yard par 3 guarded by bunkers on both the left and the right. Today the pin is tucked on the left-hand side. I pulled this shot pretty good left, but luckily it sliced back onto the right side of the green. Brandon played a pretty good shot here. He just pulled it a tad left, missed the green by about 10 feet, but it should be a pretty easy up and down for him there. This is a look at my putt from the front right part of the green back at this hole. I thought this was going to break a lot more than it did, obviously, but it was still a pretty good pace and left me a 4-footer there for par, which I got away with here because a par is something you'll never be mad at on this hole. After Brandon's little chip on here, he just had a 2-footer left for his par, which he'll tap in and make here. Now onto the par 4 7th. This is a 366-yard par 4 from the tips. The only thing you really need to look out for here is a bunker on the right side of the fairway, which Brandon pretty frequently can carry. I've got to play it to the left-hand side of that bunker. I didn't quite get all of that driver. I left myself about 170 yards into this par 4.
Good shot.
I played, I think, a 7-iron here that ran up to the front side of the green. Brandon with the standard 80 to 100 yards in front of me on the fairway has a nice little wedge in with a perfect angle to the green. This is another green where it's really important to leave yourself below the hole because it's really quick coming back down the hill. It's a pretty good lag putt there. I left myself just a short little tap in. Brandon down the hill, you can see how lightly he tapped that, and the ball just sort of takes off and runs all the way beyond the hole, almost to the front of the green. No problemo for him though. He'll make this putt for a par, and I will follow him up with my tap in for a par as well. Now we're on to the par 4 8th. These tees are playing way up today because they're reseeding the back tees. So this is typically playing 357 yards. It's very much a position hole. But today it was playing about 294 yards, so we're all trying to drive the green. I did not get all of my driver again. I barely carried a pond that's out there about 260, 270 yards. And Brandon got absolutely all of his, but he pulled it just a little bit left, so he'll be in a different fairway, but we'll both have a short approach in. So here's Brandon from a different fairway. He's just going right up over that tree, directly at the pin there. That was a really good shot. And then my shot here, I've just got about 40 yards to the pin, so I'm just playing a nice little half swing wedge that I'm going to have went up right to the pin there, hopefully. So here's where Brandon's little wedge ended up. He had like 5 feet to the hole, and he makes his putt for a birdie, which is pretty unbelievable, up and down over that tree. And then my putt for my birdie, I'll miss just barely, so I'll end up making par on that short par 4. And then finally, the 9th hole is a 417-yard par 4. That's a dogleg to the left. It's a fairly narrow landing zone off this tee. There's a grove of trees left and right that you don't want to be in. It's already a kind of long approach shot since it's uphill, so being in those trees is not going to be ideal. So I went ahead and put my ball in the trees to the right, and you can see here I had to punch out. I didn't even have a look at that green. And then with my wedge, I think I had probably about 120 yards in. And I'll just play this one right below the pin. Actually, a really good wedge shot. And Brandon went a little bit left again, but since he's so long off the tee, he went long of the grove of trees left and just had a wedge in over these trees.
Tiny bit left.
So I actually gave myself a pretty good look here, scrambling for a par. I did not make this putt, but I would tap in for a finishing bogey. Brandon, just a little bit beyond the hole, he's got a little downhill breaker right to left. He ended up running it just a little bit by, but he was able to get this 4 or 5 footer back up the hill for a finishing par.